What is up, and I welcome each and every one of you back to a brand new video. I hope you're all having fantastic days, and if not, I hope I can make your day just a little bit better. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Did I tell you guys to subscribe? Because that is something you should definitely be doing. We are back with the top 5 waves Civilization 6 can still be improved. Civ 6 is a complete game, I guess you could say. Just like Civilization 5 was after Brave New World, Civilization 6 has had 2 expansions and has had the new Frontier Pass, but all of which have added so much more depth to the game. We got loyalty mechanics, we got governors, we got the weather climate type change thingies. We got new units, we got everything, we got new civs as well, and it is a complete game, and it is still a very good game. It is my most played game of all time, even more than Civ 5, it crossed that mark a while ago, but there are still some ways that I can see Civ 6 that can still be improved to make it not only a really good game, but an incredible game that's maybe top 5 all time, that type of stuff. So without further ado, let's get started with number 5, more interactive religious victory and an economic victory. Economic victory, I think the last time they had this was in Civilization Revolution 2, the iPhone game they had. Let's get started with the economic victory. There should be an economic victory, right? There should be, and it's not as if there isn't like a template in place for an economic victory. There is. It is called the Monopolies and Corporations game mode. What I think they should do is they should allow you to build monopolies and build corporations and have sort of like a screen showing who has what monopolies and who has what corporations. And for you to win that game, for example, you need, a specific amount of resources, a specific amount of economic pressure, I guess you could say. For example, if you have like 20 grapes, it's like more diplomatic pressure than more economic pressure than having 5 grapes, 5 gypsum, and 5, well, it's something. It's just like, it's sort of an idea right now. Using monopolies and corporations, I am sure we can all come up with at the very least for Axis can come up with a game mode in which we could get an economic victory. The way they used to do it, I think, is you had to build the World Bank. I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of like a knockoff of the science victory, right? Building something to end the victory on. But I feel like just getting an economic victory, getting a certain amount of money, maybe having corporations be like a sort of actual sort of district or industry that you can like slowly build up. And the stronger your industry, the more it upgrades into like a corporation and then a monopoly. And the more it upgrades, the more bonuses you get for an economic victory. And then towards the end, it's like, I don't know, it could be something like, sort of maybe even build the World Bank at the end to sort of have, if you get to a certain level of monopolism with your industry, right, depending on the resources you have, the variety of resources, you can build the World Bank to win an economic victory. I feel like there is still some untouched potential there. And the way Monopolies and Corporations, which is one of my favorite game modes, by the way, I feel like there is definitely a template for that, for them to take stuff from that victory type, take stuff from Civilization Revolution, and incorporate it into a sort of economic victory type that we can have in Civ 6 as a standard victory type. We already have civs that are really good with economies, like Mali, Portugal, Spain, the Cree, anyone with a trade route. So it's not as if like we'd have no civs who get bonuses to economic victory types. Maybe even release an extra civ or two, like Venice, for example, that'll just solely focus on economic victory types. But I think we also need an update to the religious victory. The religious victory is just so bland. Convert my civilization with your missionaries, win the game, whoever gets the most faith. I feel like it sort of should be more interactive, right? Instead of forcing other people, like going into civilizations and converting, whoever has the most faith. I feel like it should be a mixture of that, and then also like like going into sort of like a world church type of thing, right? Maybe you can build like a sort of like a church type of center in your capital, sort of like the Pope has in the Vatican, and sort of like other religions have. Islam has Mecca. I don't know what Hinduism has, and Judaism has Jerusalem. Maybe be able to build a religious center, and the more like you can improve it over the years, maybe during the civic tree, there was like sort of like how there's different government types. There could be like different evolutions, maybe like reformations and stuff like that, and upgrade it like sort of that way. I feel like the way you get great profits is fine with building holy sites. I feel like just having a sort of religious center in your capital, maybe you could even give bonuses to other sort of victory types and have it so that instead of having to convert most of the enemy civilizations, which in my opinion is entirely too easy. Like, it is so easy to convert other civilizations. Literally just build holy sites. You'll win in like turn 150. I feel like getting it so that your religion, your like place of your Mecca or your Vatican or sort of whatever, I don't know what that's called, into your religious center, does give bonuses and does give sort of like pressure, and sort of when you like convert an enemy civilization, they will add in more influence towards your type of church. And the way it could happen is like there's also drawbacks to it. You could have like the religious center reduces your economy because churches usually don't pay taxes, religious centers don't pay taxes, so have it like reduce your income, reduce your production. The higher level it is, the more influence it has, but also the more influence it has, the more points, I guess we could call it gets towards a religious victory. I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there. I feel like religious victory needs to be more interactive. Science, culture, domination, victory are all perfect. I would not change a thing about them. They're all unique and very nice. We don't talk about score victory. That isn't an actual victory type in the game, and if it is, uninstall the game, please. But in all honesty, that is pretty much all I have for making victory types more interactive and even introducing an economic victory type. Number 4, we have improved AI decision making. Now, I know it is a lot easier theoretically than it is to put it on actual paper, to put it in the game. AI decision making has plagued Civ since the first game. Now, the reason I have this at number 4, and the reason I have this in general, is last week we had this sort of like Civ 6 invitational type thing, and I did end up disconnecting because my power did go out. You might call me salty for this, but I feel like it is something that should be changed. When I came back, it wasn't just that the AI was making dumb decisions. It was just basic stuff. Like, I came back, I was making like negative 50 gold per turn or negative 20 gold per turn or something like that, and they were continuing to build units. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, shouldn't they be working on their economy more than building units? If you're making negative money, you won't even be able to keep the units with negative money. Not only that, but I had 5 settlers settled out, right, prepared to go settle by the time I went and got DC'd, and they kept those settlers in the middle of my empire when there was plenty of spaces, good spaces for me to settle those cities. They ended up settling like 1 out of my 5 total settlers ended up settling cities. I know it might sound salty a little bit, but I feel like, come on, that's basic stuff, right? Go and send the settler to go settle a city. I am making negative gold. If you make negative gold, then try to build commercial hubs, and at the very least, don't build units that cost unit maintenance. Right? It's not really the biggest thing in the world because I feel like the AI, especially on higher difficulties, they get so many bonuses it sort of makes up for their stupidity. Except if it just like me playing the multiplayer where the AI was on Prince difficulty, it just showed like the AI is just so dumb and just so stupid in general when making decisions. And I know it is hard. I'm not a computer programmer. I know it is harder to put it into the actual game than it is to talk about it, but I feel like stuff like just like I said, like go settle the city. I feel like that shouldn't be too hard. Like I had 5 settlers, one of them ended up settling, and they kept building units even though we were in negative gold. They did end up like placing my great writers and like building theater squares, but they also had great writers going down south towards the snow, the Antarctic Circle for some reason. Like I had no idea. Did that guy think he was a great explorer or something? No, you're a great writer. Go back to home and wait till I can get a theater square. That's just my opinion. Again, like I said, it's easier said than done to get the AI decision making right, but I feel like there are just some things that should be more easily implemented than sort of like having the AI get an actual strategy and like going for a science or culture victory. Those are just my ideas. That's number 4, AI decision making. Number 3, we have pace of each era. Everybody who's played a game of Civ knows what I'm talking about. The ancient classical era, take like years to get finished. It takes like 100 turns to get through the classical era. The medieval era, maybe about 50 turns. You know, it still isn't too bad when it comes to the medieval era and Renaissance era when it comes to pace. By the time you get to the industrial era and beyond, the eras just go by like that. I hope you can hear me snapping my fingers. It just goes by so fast. I can't even build units and end up using them. That's really the problem I have. They just end up going by so fast because you end up having so much science and so much culture that, you know, if you build build a field cannon in the industrial era, 10 turns later, it's obsolete because you have machine guns. 10 turns later, that's obsolete because you have just like something else. It's just something like that. Like literally fighters. 2 techs later, you get jet fighters, right? I feel like there are just not enough techs in the later eras, and I do understand how grindy it would be, especially considering that you want to go for a victory most of the time, and if you just get to like the industrial era, that's really when you should start focusing entirely on your victory type. But I feel like just having like longer time to get my units used, I guess you could say, right? Like if I'm using a fighter, I want to be able to use that for like 50 turns instead of having it viable for like 20 turns. I want modern era units to be viable for more than 15 turns before I get into like the atomic era and beyond. But yeah, I feel like there are just too many units too clumped up together, and I feel like there aren't enough technologies or that the technologies are too cheap. I feel like the best way to go about doing this is to add in more technologies, or at the very least make technologies more expensive, reduce the number of units also, maybe have like jet fighters come towards like the late atomic era and have fighters come in during like the early modern era or something like that. I'm just using fighters as an example. Tanks and infantry, kind of the same thing. I could literally get modern armor 20 turns after a tank if I really wanted to. I feel like it should be at the very least 30 to 40 turns so I can build these units, maybe upgrade into them, have an entire war going on like 15, 20 turns with just the tanks, and just have it so that like not have it so that the ancient era takes up like half the game and the modern era takes up like 10 turns or something like that. I feel like that's what they can do. But anyway, those are my ideas for making the pace of each era feel more even, more equal, more realistic. Number 2, we have improved naval combat. Now, naval combat has one really, well, it has 2 things that are just really flawed with naval combat. Number 1, why use a ship when you can use land units, right? Land units are going to be able to pillage more tiles. They are going to be able to surround the city even more. They are going to be able to go in the, like if you have a land unit, you could put him in the ocean to surround the city, right? You understand what I'm saying? Not only that, but they also have siege units. So it's like, why go for naval units in a Pangaea or continents type map, which is like 90% of what everyone plays on, when you could just go for land units, get some siege engines, get some battering rams. You know, if you need to surround the city and there's like water tiles, just put 1 or 2 units in the ocean. They should last long enough for you to destroy the walls or any unit in the city. It doesn't take too long to take cities. The second major flaw is usually cities have no more than 2 or 3 tiles surrounding the city center by the ocean. Usually it's only 1 or 2. So usually what ends up happening, ancient era naval combat is completely unviable because quadriremes have 1 range and you can only have 1 or 2 units next to a city, and having 1 or 2 units next to a city and attacking it is not nearly enough, especially when the enemy is going to have like 4 or 5 archers just attacking you from the coast. The other thing is, even when you get frigates and like privateers or something like that, and ironclads, for example, you're only going to be able to attack with 3 or 4 units at a time. Not only that, but you're not even going to be able to have siege engines or battering rams or stuff like that to completely destroy walls. So like, why do that when you can have 5 or 6, you could have like 6 archers, 3 melee units with a battering ram and potentially a catapult attacking the city, which is more effective. I think it's about the same when it comes to cost effectiveness because ships are more expensive. But yeah, it just feels like naval combat units are just sort of, unless it's an archipelago type map, it's kind of even in an archipelago type map. Well, I guess archipelago is like the one thing where naval units outshine melee units. Again, it is mostly because of the map and how the game is structured around. You can't exactly have 4 or 5 ocean tiles on a Pangea map adjacent to a city center. And even if you could, like, people could just settle inland, right? I feel like Pangea map, no matter what you do, naval combat isn't going to be good there. But it's continents map I'm talking about. Like, continents, I should be able to, like, build naval units and have them be extremely effective, at least as effective as melee units. Now, how I am going to do that is we are going to completely revamp naval combat. Number one, we are not going to be able to build ships anymore. We are going to be building sailors. Now, what does that mean? There is a special unit, a sailor type of unique unit, and he unlocks with like sailing or celestial navigation or whatever it is, and he doesn't upgrade at all. He's sort of like the vampire. Whenever you go into the next era, he sort of gets like more combat strength. But what the sailor does is he is a melee land unit, right? This also helps with like sort of limiting how effective naval units are going to be. Let's say I get a naval unit in the ancient era, right? In order for me to get a boat, I have to go and maybe chop out woods, right? Let's say if I chop one forest, it doesn't even have to be in your territory, it can be in any territory. If I chop out one forest, I will have enough to build a trireme. If I chop out 2, I'll have enough to build a quadrireme. If I chop out 3, I will have enough to build a caravel. And not only that, maybe you could have him so like he can go and not harvest, but he can sort of like go to a niter. The sailor can go to a niter tile. He can spend a turn like harvesting the niter sort of. The niter stays there and like you don't harvest the niter, but he gets a part of the niter. Like you spend a turn like getting niter for the sailor. And then what you could do is you go to the coast and then you could sort of like buy boats using woods or niter or coal or oil, right? And then you have the boats. Now, how does this improve naval combat? It will be more sort of, how do you say this? More tedious in order to get boats, but I feel like this is better because, like, let's say your sailor gets a boat, right? Your sailor goes into the boat and you go to siege a city or something. Your sailors can move onto the land tiles and their combat strength won't be that much, right? Like if a swordsman has 36 combat strength, the classical era sailor would have like 30 to 32 combat strength. But you can like take the sailor, put him onto land. You can start pillaging the land tiles, surround the city. Not only that, but you can also have different types of naval units to be added, right? You could have like a siege naval unit, like you could have a ballista on a trireme that, like, I think it's like from Rome Total War or something. I've been playing a lot of Rome 2 Total War, by the way. If you guys want to watch me play Rome 2 Total War, I doubt you would, but if you would, let me know down below in the comments. Let's get back to Civ. Have like one siege naval unit every 2 eras or something, and then and then you could have like sailors go onto land to surround the city. Even you could have like 2 siege naval units and like 1 melee unit, enough to take out a city, and you could have like frigates sort of like defending your siege naval units. And not only that, but have your ranged naval units, like the quadrireme, at the very least have 2 range. So at the very least, like, you can have like 3 or 4 naval units attacking a city at the same time. Not only that, but you can also have, sort of like every ship that you build with the sailor can hold it has to have a sailor in order for it to move, and it can hold 1 extra other unit. And have it so that melee, ranged, and other types of land units can't go into the ocean at all. Only builders and traders we can have do that, but they actually have to be transported into the ship. And you can even have like a transport ship, which can hold like 2 or 3 melee units. But regular ships like a frigate or a privateer can only hold 1 melee unit. So that if you want to like sort of ferry your naval units across, it's sort of like a bit more strategy to it and a bit more realism to it. So like if I could build 4 or 5 sailors, get like 3 frigates, 1 melee ship, and like 1 transport ship. I can move 7 melee units along with my naval units to like the island I'm going to attack or something like that, or to another continent. And it could sort of be like, like more realism, more effectiveness, and it could be sort of more depth, more strategy, so that naval units will have a place in any game. Even in a continents type game where it's mostly land units, you're going to need naval units if you want to conquer the other continent. And have it so that like sailors can build ships and they're the ones who upgrade ship, and they actually require resources instead of requiring gold to upgrade. And have it so that there's a siege naval unit, and ranged naval units have at least 2 range, at least 2 range pretty much. That's pretty much all I have for improving naval units. Let me know down below, what would you guys do? Or do you think naval combat is fine and I am just stupid and don't know what I'm talking about? But yeah, let's get into the next thing we can improve. Before we get to our number one thing that needs to be improved in Civ 6, let me just make an honorable mention. Making civilizations more unique. The reason this is an honorable mention is because it's mainly towards, you know, the OG Civs or the Rise and Fall Civs. They don't feel as unique, if you know what I mean. The reason I have it as an honorable mention, though, is because the April update is coming out on the 22nd, and considering all the changes they made to Spain and the changes they made to, like, Canada and the changes they made to Littorio, I feel like they are going to make Civs, like, it's going to improve over 2/3 of the Civs on the roster, so I feel like they are going to be more unique. And I don't want to like come out with a video saying, oh, well, Civs need to be more unique. And then literally 2 days later, it's like they come out with the update and they literally made every Civ like completely unique. So this is something that has to be changed, but it is going to be changed with the April update that is coming out in about a week. So I am only going to give this an honorable mention. Number one thing that has to be changed in Civilization 6. This is the one thing, in my opinion, that has to be improved on, especially if like Civ is trying to get more players into the game. The multiplayer scene. My god, the Civ 6 multiplayer is nothing short of atrocious, terrible, absolutely garbage. Now, what is wrong with the Civ 6 multiplayer? Number one, the crashes are absolutely blech. Like, you will crash almost half the time. You will disconnect, you will do that, and if you're trying to go into like a random multiplayer game online and you disconnect, there is almost no way for you to come back. Like, maybe they stop and try to get you back, but most of the time they are going to think you like DC'd because you quit or something because you're a little bitch. But yeah, if you DC, you're not going to be able to come back. Not only that, but the multiplayer games are so long, and that is sort of like a product of the game in general. Like, online speed is still going to take like 5 or 6 hours, because when it comes to multiplayer, everybody, like, Civ 6 is a game where like strategy, you have to think. So like most people are going to use the most out of the turn timer. Not only that, but people could have like weak connections to the server. That seems to happen a lot of the time. So it takes like 5 turns to get one turn, like 5 minutes to get like one turn passed, and it will take like 5 or 6 hours, which, listen, if you are able to complete a Civ game where nobody DCs for 5 or 6 hours, whether they rage quit or whether their internet goes out, I will give you $1 million. Not even joking, you will get $1 million if you can show me proof of that. Obviously, if you play with friends, it does make things a little bit more easier. But like last week when we did the Civ Invitational type thing, it did take 2 hours for us to actually get into a game. It just kept crashing, you know, map tags still don't work. It's just so many things that could be improved on. Really, the most important thing they have to improve on is just working on the stability of the server. At the very least, like, make it so that DCs don't happen as often, right? Make the multiplayer more stable, and make it so that the turns go by quicker, right? I don't know how you would do that. I feel like the best way to do that is to have a faster speed than online, right? Have online and then have like a special multiplayer type speed where it takes like, where you have like a boost to production, a boost to science, a boost to culture, and online, or at the very least a boost to production and online speed, right? So that you can build units faster. So even if the eras go by quicker, you will have enough time to like build units, declare war, build districts, you know, have a faster speed, because even online speed takes a few hours. I feel like if you could bring it down to like the average game taking 2 hours or something like that, that would be fine. But really the most important thing is make the game more stable so that we can actually play an actual multiplayer type game. And some other thing we could do, this is sort of like the cherry on top, nothing that really needs to be added. I feel like having a ranked system in Civilization 6 would be very, very cool. It would get more people into multiplayer, that's for sure. Civ 6 is more of a casual game, but having this sort of ranking system that shows how good you are compared to other people. Obviously, we have the rankings like Deity and Immortal, but I feel like having those rankings in like a multiplayer system, have like you start at Settler and to Deity, and depending on how well you do, like what your ranking is in every game, like let's say if I get like the top 50% in my game, like let's say there's 20 people and I get like 11th, I go from like Settler to level 1, and to Prince, I end up leveling up. But if I am at like Immortal or Deity or something like that, like the sort of like multiplayer ranking, and I end up getting like 10th, you know, right down the middle, like the 50th percentile, I end up like losing sort of score or anything like that. I don't know exactly how you would implement it. That's just sort of one idea. It seems like every game has a ranking system. This isn't really anything that needs to be added. It's just something that could be like a sort of cool cherry on top type of thing. But yeah, multiplayer, please fix the multiplayer. Please make it so you don't DC every 5 minutes, and please make it so that like we can actually have faster games and so that people don't end up DCing from boredom. But yeah, that's pretty much it for multiplayer. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. These are obviously just my ideas. Let me know down below what else you would want from Civilization 6. There have been rumors going around that there is going to be a new Frontier Pass. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe it's just an expansion. Maybe they're going to work on another game. But the way Civ usually does, they usually have the base game, come out with 2 expansions, and then come out with like sort of a spin-off game like Civilization, like Beyond Earth or Revolution. And then they come out with like Civilization, the next Civilization like Civ 7. The new Frontier Pass was sort of uncharted territory, and apparently it was a massive success. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go for another new Frontier Pass, especially because with the Humankind game coming out, it's sort of like a direct competitor to Civ 6. So maybe going out with like a new base game of Civ 7, which is going to be like bare to the bones. We all know it's going to be bare to the bones. Might not be the best when competing with Humankind, because then people would like compare Civ 7 to Humankind, whereas if you get the new Frontier Pass, they would still compare Civ 6 to Humankind. But anyway, who knows? Just let me know what you guys think, what you guys would improve on, and what you guys think of my ideas. As always, like, comment, subscribe. I have a ton of fun making these types of like videos, not really playthroughs, but sort of like discussion type videos. And yeah, I'll probably come out with another one tomorrow, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.